Thank you all so much for joining us for Armchair Travel to Tanzania. We're going to travel with Jack Holmes on safari in Tanzania and search for wildlife in several national parks and other far out places. We're going to visit with local people and experience travel in this amazing country. And as I said, this is led by Jack Holmes, who's a travel photographer and owner of Images from Near and Far at Western Avenue Studios in Lowell. A retired high school teacher, Jack previously served as president of the Greater Lynn Photographic Association, as well as the gallery manager of the Loading Dock Gallery in Lowell. And I again want to thank the Friends of the Library for sponsoring. So all 175 of us or so who are watching live, and the many more that will watch the recording, let's give a big virtual round of applause to Jack for joining us here tonight. And Jack, you can take it away. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robert. And thanks to the Friends of the Library. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to present to all of you folks who tuned in. Thank you for tuning in and traveling with me to Tanzania. Tanzania is near the equator, East Central Africa. My wife Meg and I traveled there with Overseas Adventure Travel. It's called OAT, O-A-T. Our OAT group of some 16 Americans assembled at Rossapoli Airport in Amsterdam after we flew from Boston. And then it's a 10-hour flight or so to Tanzania. For 2 weeks, we toured Tanzania for almost 2 weeks, looking at wildlife and Tarangire and Ngorongoro, Oldupai Gorge, and Serengeti. We flew into Arusha first. We'll also stop at some other cultural places along the way. Should say that all the photos in this program are mine, with the exception of a few of them, a handful or so which belong to my wife. We started in Arusha. Arusha is in northeastern Tanzania. It's the jumping off capital for tours, since Kilimanjaro and many national parks are relatively nearby. Area population is about some 750,000. It's 7 hours ahead of our Eastern Daylight Time. Ola City Lodge was our Arusha home for a couple days, the beginning. It's an all-inclusive gated lodge. Resorts, tourist resorts are pretty much all gated. We never felt unsafe, but all gated places, they kind of make you wonder. But in Tanzania, where there is so much wildlife away from the cities, that gated simply means that you're safe from animals. Speaking of animals, inside Ola City, we had some vervet monkeys visiting us. They're always hanging around looking for bananas and posing while they ate them. Beside Ola City was a church, and on Sunday morning we could hear the singing that was taking place inside the church. The morning session of about 3 hours or so is singing and chanting. After lunch, they spend the rest of the afternoon preaching. So we stopped there in the morning and went in and stayed for about a half hour, taking in the energy and the solemnity that was obvious in the space. Outside, this young fella posed for me. One of the tips for photographing young folks is that don't shoot down on them, get down and shoot at eye level. So I got down low in a crouch. He did too. So we're both crouching while I'm photographing and he's posing. It was kind of an interesting interaction. I must have been the tourist attraction. Outside, there was a lost shoe tied to the branch just near him. This is a street market that's near Ola City Lodge. It runs every day. Very, very busy on Saturdays. That's much, much larger than what you see here. So as we leave Arusha, in the buses, we usually pass by this, and since we're in a small bus, looking out the window, we are again, the tourist attraction. This is a small bus for the 16 people, driver and guide on this one. Our first visit was to a place called Shanga Shanga, which is an NGO complex. And it focuses on work with handicapped people, handicap workshop here. There's a farm, an extensive farm, and then there's a restaurant as well. The farm grows a number of crops, including cotton and coffee. Here, a local, somebody working in the handicap place, working on some local cotton fabric being sewn for sale in the gift shop. The gift shop also had obvious handicraft works for sale as well, made by people who were in the workshops. They had a nice little River House restaurant. That's us out. So we're at the restaurant for lunch. Nice lunch. I don't recognize many things on the menu except for salad. I wonder what banana stew was like. But anyway, we had a nice lunch afternoon afterwards. It was tasty. I'm not quite sure all of these were, but these are obviously beans. Like these are sausages with maybe lentils. This is rice, kind of like spinach. It's a salad. I'm not sure if I remember what that was, but it was tasty. It was tasty. Next day, we're ready to depart for our drive to Tarangire. This is our guide, God Living McKinday. He's our oat guide. He's explaining routes on the map that we're going to be using. As we're getting ready to leave the lodge, we could hear a band that was outside the compound beside the church. It turned out this band was graduation day for the journalism school. God Living called this kind of stop learning and discovery. And so we would stop and we would discover what's happening. This was our bus driver that we had when we were coming from the airport and in Arusha. And this is his graduating daughter, graduating from journalism school. Anyway, now we're off. We're off on the tour. We switched from the bus to 3 land cruisers. Each land cruiser could hold up to 6 people. So we're driving towards Tarangire on Highway T104. And this is a bicycle tour group that seems to be heading back towards Arusha as we're leaving the town. Views out across the plain. This may be Kilimanjaro, but I'm not 100% certain. Along the way, we came upon a Maasai teenager on the roadside. Some learning and discovery, said our guide, God Living. The 6 boys preparing for what's called Emirata. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but it is the coming of age instruction for teenagers. They leave the village and their duties of herding and whatever other duties they have, and they go into the bush to live, and they're taught by an elder. Boys are dressed in simple dark robes have their faces painted. The instruction and the ceremonies culminate with their ritual circumcision, which is done without anesthesia, I might add. These groups of boys stand on roadside and they interact with passers-by, including tourists. Here I am without a hat that day. We learn about them. They may receive some money. God Living gave them some learning and discovery money to buy new sandals. It would be said that the girls do not do this interaction on the roads, Also, their dangerous genital circumcision has been outlawed by the government, but unfortunately, that doesn't stop the practice from continuing in some conservative areas. Tarangire National Park, southwest of Arusha. It's famous for elephants, and baobab trees, and a hilly landscape. There's about 1,100 square miles in area, so making it just a little bit smaller than Rhode Island. This vervet monkey is telling us that the speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour, which is about 31 miles an hour, and do not litter the park. There's a baobab tree, big tree. This is one of the Land Cruisers. It's the lead one. We use 3 of these for our safaris. And here Grant's gazelle is it's jokingly called a McDonald's gazelle because the rump has a marking that looks like an M. They are eaten by predator cats, so they are sometimes referred to as Happy Meals. There's a Grant's gazelle grazing. And then a couple of this elephants of the park. Elephants don't eat gazelles. Elephants eat acacia trees. Here's a suburb starling. That's its name. Tarangire has over 500 species of birds. So if you're into birding, this might be an interesting place in Africa to visit. Interesting landscapes here as well. Some herons in the trees. I think they're herons. This is an eagle, I know that. And this is, I believe it's a tawny eagle. And as we got close, it lifted off, big wingspan. These are our vehicles. God living here is looking for wildlife. These Land Cruisers hold a driver and then 5, possibly 6 passengers. Typically the vans, we were just 6 of us maximum. The roof pops off, so you're allowed to stand up and look out the top of the van. Rarely are you allowed outside of the van. All of the wildlife photos that were taken from either inside the van out the windows or out the top with a telephoto lens. This toppy is posing for me on this little knob here. We often saw bones on the roadside. These bones are probably a giraffe. And giraffes are common in Tarangire, just like the elephants. Often you'd see a giraffe standing, and they will stand for a cleaning bird to come, and the cleaning bird will land. This is a yellow beaked oxpecker, and it removes ticks and other blood-sucking instruments from these large grazing animals. Giraffes aren't the only ones that host the oxpecker. And when we stayed at Tarangire, we actually stayed outside the park in these lodge houses. These lodge houses had solar hot water, which is really kind of nice. Since this resort was inside of a fenced area, we were able to walk around, and you could see what you could see. This is a pair of dung beetles doing their business, working on a ball. And here a bowerbird weaving on its nest. And sundown with a lodge in the side. Lead vehicles here are stopped, and I see people popped up. So when people are up, there must be something out there. Oh yeah. A lone bull elephant was there, munching acacia trees, leaves and twigs. Closer look, you see there's a scar on its face, on its cheek, indicating that he's had some confrontations. And then a different, more aggressive browser was down the road a bit, And sometimes these elephants actually topple these acacia trees. 3 females at a watering hole. We're on the road on opposite the watering hole. She spread her ears as a warning. This is not an aggressive one, but it's still a warning. Keeping the watering hole beside us, we moved away on the road. Further down, there's a spotted hyena crossing the road. Animals are generally used to vehicles on the road, and the only one I've ever heard causing a problem is recently I saw some things about an elephant in some place in Africa who tipped over one of these Land Cruisers. But the animals own the road, it's theirs. Shower coming. I see some virga on the horizon here. This is the road in Tarangire. They're dirt roads, and when they get wet, they can get pretty slippery. This is the beginning of the rainy season here at Tarangire. Out beyond these trees, this is the Tarangire River, and then misty rain. There's a panorama of that same view. I'm using that as a backdrop tonight. Kwakachina, the village. This photograph was taken through the windshield of the van. So when you shoot through the windshield, it does not give you a sharp view. So it's better if you're shooting to the side. So out the windows, you have much better view. These ladies are heading to the market on Saturday market at Kwakachina. In the market. Hello, he says, where you from? That's the approach line that they all use. And if you hold it, you almost bought it. So the Swahili word is, words of Hawana, Hapana Asante. I think that might be how it's said. It means, I don't want it. It doesn't really matter what you say. He's still going to offer it to you. And so you have to say it again. And then eventually you say, no. Nearby, spread out on the open space is the market for the things that are for sale in the market are usually arranged by the type of items which they're selling. These are sandals made from old tires, and these are the kind of sandals that the Emirata boys would probably eventually buy. Bolts of fabric. We'll see a lot of these fabrics. This fabric and this one, this color, these are common, and we see them quite a lot used for skirts and for shawls. Women and men generally shopped everywhere. But when it came to the animal area, only the men were in there. This gentleman has purchased a goat. Talking about the goat to this couple. Recognize some of these fabrics that we saw being for sale. She must have been at the market heading home. We're approaching a Maasai village for a prearranged oat learning and discovery time. God living and the headman all dressed up. Note the knobby cane he's got here. This is significant for his office, signify he's the headman of this village. This is the retired headman who was his father, and he greets the elderly folks of our group. Curious. Well, again, we are the tourist attraction quite often. These two young men are arriving for a tourist performance, and some more men arriving on foot. He's on his way to daycare, playtime, and then maybe going all the way to daycare. The program is getting ready to begin here. The costume that these women are wearing were traditionally for just weddings, but now they're also used for tourist performances as well. And again, we recognize some of the fabrics that we saw in the market. They all wear the same outfit, but their adornment and their jewelry was individual. Our women were dressed appropriately, and they had ornamentation as well, and they were paraded past the men. Fancy dancing is done by men in the villages, and at this performance in particular, God Living is getting warmed up here, and then with another one of our drivers, they're jumping as high as they can. So this high leaping, as high as possible, is used to impress the women. God Living and the driver really were no match for the local fellas who were doing this. Nice style. They get way up in the air. Our women were taught some women's work, like carrying firewood on your head and fixing thatched roofs, and then patching walls of I'm not sure what the dwelling is called, but you patch it with a mixture of cow dung and mud. It makes for dirty hands. So afterwards, they proudly show you dirty hands there, and then they really, really work hard at washing them really well. And then cleaning under your fingernails with an acacia thorn. You don't want to be taking any of that mixture back with you. A woman and her son watching the performances, and we're getting ready to leave. Goodbye. And the Swahili word is kwaharini. Kwaharini means goodbye. I hope I pronounce it right. There's a herd of tour vehicles at the watering hole for Ngorongoro crater. To remind you of the geography that we'll be working with here, Kenya border, Arusha. The airport was down here off the map. Kilimanjaro's up here on the border. We had just been in Tarangire, and Cochina was on this space in here. And now we're going to be heading towards Ngorongoro, Oldupai Gorge, and Serengeti. A rim view of Ngorongoro crater. And this is the entrance gate. And as typical, roads are dirt roads here. The park itself is only about 100 square miles, so it's not especially large. The crater area belongs to the larger Ngorongoro Conservation Area, but this section is a collapsed volcanic crater with an interior crater lake. Road leads down to the floor of the crater, so it's at the highest point, it's about 1,000 feet to the crater floor. Down inside, some baobab trees. There's a lone bull elephant. It's apparently nearing the end of its life, we were told. It turns out that when their last set of molars wear out, they're not able to chew plants anymore. And so unfortunately, they starve to death. Crater Lake expands and contracts with the season. There's a black kite, and we're at the parking lot of the snack bar beside the lake, and it was circling around, and it dive bombed the kid with a bag of chips. The kid screamed and dropped the bag and ran away. I don't remember if the kite went down after the bag or not. I don't think so. Around here, seagulls would go down after the bag for sure. Wildebeest and dust devils kicked up by the winds inside the crater. Some Cape buffalo grazing. 3 of them thought we were interesting enough to give us a glance. Speaking of glances, 2 lions here on this little knob. They're watching a hyena. and the hyena is watching some Thompson's gazelles. Everybody was just watching at that time. We didn't see any activity other than that. A lovely warthog. On my previous car, I had a bumper sticker that said, "I love warthogs." Gray crown crane, gray crowned crane, and a wildebeest, and 1,000 flamingos. Common zebras. Common zebras have stripes that go under their belly all around. Profile portrait. We're on the road to Oldupie Gorge. Oldupie Gorge is part of conservation area, but it's an under-visited space. It's on a long, rough detour off the main road to Serengeti. This particular truck was having a problem. There's a fella down here working on something underneath there. Like Grand Canyon, Oldupie Gorge is difficult to photograph. Oldupie is where the anthropologist Mary and Louis Leakey worked for decades. Long ago, my wife and I had planned to participate in an anthropology project here, but political upheaval in neighboring Kenya canceled the project, and we'd always wanted to go there, but this is the first chance we actually had. 1959, Mary Leakey found skull parts of a homonym in a 1.9 million year old sandstone strata. Her husband, Louis, named it Zinjanthropus bosai. Later, it was reclassified as Paranthropus. Remains of some 60 different Homo habilis individuals and their tools have been found here. She founded this small museum near the gorge rim at that particular, in the 1960s. Staff member showing some of the large animal bones of animals that would have been contemporary with Paranthropus. Also, there was an interesting exhibit about a Japanese man who passed through this space in 2002. He was traveling solo by bicycle on the path of early hominins from South Africa to Japan. Apparently, it took him many years to finish that project. He did it off and on. Time for us to move on to Serengeti. Don't know what kind of bird this is. It looks kind of grackle-ish. It looks kind of cowbirdish, but it's got a seed cracking bill here, and I could not find what that bird was. Anyway, moving on. Oh, before the main road, God Living said, "Check the tire time." Usually that was code for its toilet break, but not this time. He, in fact, did have to check the tires. No learning and discovery for these young men. Not today. They just stood and watched as the tourists worked to fix the van. I was designated the photographer, too many hands in the kitchen and all that kind of stuff. Heading down, we're heading to Karatu town. There's some local kids are boarding the buses. Educationally, Tanzania is a third world country, and in 2012, yeah, you really had to have some resources to be able to go to school, even through primary school. These kids obviously were not in school. A lot of reasons for not going to school was simply they had to work, support family, or the family couldn't afford to send them to school. 2016, I think it was, 2012, Tanzania decided to make education free for all through high school, but less than half of the kids taking the exit exams out of primary school were eligible to enter high school. So education's tough there. Driving into a small town on the way, some animals walking through town, boy on a sidewalk on the other side of the street. This town is famous for its bananas, and here they're packed on bicycles that are going to be transported for delivery. Also being packed here on top of a local passenger bus for delivery further on down the road. Next town was Karatu, but we were staying at a place called Taloma Lodge. This is a luxury farm stay. They did a lot of growing here, a lot of farming, and to supplement the income, they made it a resort as well. You grew a lot of sunflowers in this space. Sunset at Taloma Lodge. The blessing and the curse of foreign travel often is the lack of English-speaking news. BBC and sometimes CNN International are the only services that you can find at lodgings favored by foreigners. This was Taloma Lodge had our first internet and CNN in a week after having been there. In 2012, the night before we got to Taloma, they had called the election for Obama. So this is the end. This is November of 2012. Next day was Learning and Discovery Day. Learning and Discovery Day, the day after Obama got elected. We approached a brick-making village. Their red clay is their material. So they dig it out. It's mixed with water till it gets to the proper consistency. Then they're packed into molds. The molds themselves are about the total area of a cinder block, but they're only about a quarter as thick as the block. Anyway, they're unmolded and they're set aside to dry in the sun. The headman here in the green shawl is explaining the process to us. In order to complete the job, they need wood, so they have to bring wood in, get it cut down to the right size, and then that's fed into kilns. It's made into kilns where the bricks are fired. Bricks are used in the village, and they're also sold in the area base for house constructions. Again, we're the tourist attraction. As we left the brick making area, we are heading to do a home visit. Oak likes to do home visits to give you a sense of what the people's life is like. So there is a cultural session and a local meal. They hire these people in the villages or wherever they're traveling to host oat travelers. We're heading into the village. By the way, so after the houses are built, they may coat them with stucco on the exterior, so it's not like a raw brick. Anyway, it's wash day here at this particular house, and we're going in. This couple recently had a new baby, and they're very happy, very happy. And they were generally happy to receive visitors to their home. The baby had a family name, but not yet a Christian name. And they asked if they could use my wife's name, Margaret. Of course, she said. And here's the baby and the godmother. God living, checking his his schedule here. I wonder what these kids thought about the guide bringing Western tourists into their brick village. There was a cultural visit in the common house. our ladies, they had pants, and so they were robed in skirts, and the skirts were taught to dance. And the headman here's instrument is a dried gourd, looks like a pumpkin actually, and it's played with a string bow. I don't remember the sound, but anyway, there he was singing, there was singing and dancing, and then they eventually, ooh, God living, let the kid wear the glasses. And a quick meal, simple meal it was, and then we're off. Local kids follow us out of the area as we headed to the central Karatu market. Note the cowboy shirt here. Donated clothes and shoes from the US and other Western countries find their way to used clothes markets in third world countries. We saw one of those markets in Arusha. God living had divided us into 3 teams, one for each of the vans, to go to the market to do dinner shopping. Each group had a shopping list and about 5,000 Tanzanian shillings, which is less than $5. We needed to bargain with that. He wanted us to return with some change. Women's work, go shopping. A woman had to work in Swahili since English is not the first language in this market. And God living had given us cheat sheets of words and phrases to work with. Some enterprising teenagers latched on to the groups and helped the obviously challenged foreigners. Fella here saw me photographing it. With shopping done and change in hand, we adjourned to a bar that one of the guides knew. And the news that the foreigners were there traveled fast, and the bar filled up pretty quickly. Really became packed with folks who we had seen at the market. And warm banana beer was the beverage of choice. I'll have a Kiro, please. Not expensive. Music played, people danced, and I photographed. This guy here with a knit cap was our group's helper in the market. He was, Meg was the leader, and so he was the helper. Okay, let's see how successful you were, said God living. We got back to Taloma Lodge. You did pretty well, he said. You did pretty well. I guess you can have dinner tonight. Next day we arrive at Nabi Gate, entrance to Serengeti National Park. This is a 2012 price list that was posted there. We were there for 4 days and 3 nights at a special camp. So a quick look suggests that each one of us paid over $400 a piece, exclusive of the use of the vehicle. Safaris, by the way, are not cheap. I did take a quick look at OAT for a trip like this, and it's right now a trip very similar to this is about $6,000, exclusive of airfare, I think. But if it's a bucket list thing, I recommend that you get into a space where you're going to be there more than 1 night, 2 days. Serengeti Plain, where there's no water, there's no trees. This is an African massage road, especially if you sat on the Land Cruiser over the rear wheels. But we started to see immediately. We began to see wildlife. There's some Cape buffalo. This is a busted bird. Here's a gazelle. Common zebras right off. You recognize the belly stripes. And a lion. Oh yeah, a lion. This is a lady lion. Pride had some 15 animals, 8 females, 2 males that stayed somewhat separate, and then they had 5 cubs. Later, welcoming sign to Prince of Charles tent camp. Somebody said that Prince of Charles actually used this tent camp at one point when he was here. I'm not sure that's true. I couldn't find whether he had or not. But as we came into the road, there were 2 black-backed jackals who were harassing a warthog, and the warthog had a baby. So I think they were looking to get at the baby. I'm not sure whether they were successful. The mother fought them off a couple times, and then we moved on. So I don't know what the outcome was, but I have a suspicion that they weren't all that aggressive or successful. Anyway, we're sitting in front of our tent. This is the 6th tent in the row, faro, the end of the row. Front of the tent is a full bedroom with a queen size bed in there. And then behind that section is a fabric wall, is a dressing room, a toilet, and a Navy shower. This wash basin is out front, and we also had a little table out front as well. Cook tent, prep tents in the back. So lunch, dinner were prepared here. And any camera batteries or other batteries that needed charging, you put on the table here after dinner or after lunch, and they would be charged by the camp generator because there's no electricity, no outside electricity in the camp. Storage for produce that we were working with. And here is the head chef generally explaining the menu that we were going to have. I don't remember it specifically, but at no time were we unhappy with it. Dinner and campfire. After dinner and campfire, it was dark. So you were escorted back to your tent by one of the staff carrying this lantern, a lantern like that. Tents had a smaller solar panel and a marine battery, so that the only electricity you had at your tent was a small two small spiral 9-watt bulbs, one in the main room and then one in the dressing room in the back. No unescorted walking was permitted in the camp after dark. Later at night, you could hear animals not far away from the camp. It's a little exciting to be awoken at some 3 or 4 in the morning by the roar of a lion, which is not very far away. This is the back of the tent. Note the green bucket here. This is filled with hot water, and it feeds a Navy shower, which is just inside this section. The 2 of us were able to wet, soap, and rinse separately with 1 green bucket. Hot water is delivered at 6 in the morning and at 5 p.m. at night. So if you wanted a shower, it was probably best to do in the evening, just after the water was delivered, just before supper. Sunrise promptly at 6 a.m. Usually I was up to shoot it. It's okay to be unescorted here at dawn. Night hunters have finished, and the day hunters haven't begun yet. So it's kind of quiet time at sunrise. Hot water being delivered to the tent next door. Time for more African massage roads. We're out looking for, oh, there's a lion. A young male approaches, says hello. I look around. Okay. And they kind of get down together, and another one joins them. Greetings are exchanged amongst the 3 of them now. A little, okay, and they settle down. And then a female approaches. This female is not welcome. Not welcome. She looked at us, and he said no. mother and calf, savanna elephants. Looking, no threats here. Nearby, some giraffes munching acacia trees. This profile posing. Patterns on these giraffes are always reminded me of oak leaves. Large animal bones by the roadside. I don't know what kind of animal this one was. A savanna succulent flower. And a small herd of wildebeest. We're here in early November, so this is before the Great Migration, which I think is late November, December. I'm not 100% certain. Here's an olive baboon, the kid and the mother. She's doing a little bit of grooming. And here's a kid up a tree. Here's a lion up a tree. The lion is resting in a tree, not near the baboons, just kind of resting up there. Then it decided to move to a more comfortable location, and he looked at me. He looked at me with those big yellow eyes. Actually, he was probably looking at my telephoto lens. What is that? We're on the road again. Flamingos reflected in the trees in the lagoon. Again, Virga on the horizon. I was the only one in my Land Cruiser who ever asked to stop for landscape photographs. We're back home. Post sunset. This is the blue hour. Pink in the sky, blue on the land from our tent. Next morning, little used road in this section. Remember, this is the size of Connecticut. First encounter, animals on the road seem to be habituated to non-threatening vehicles. A person outside of the vehicle would be considered a threat or be considered prey. This particular lion watched our Land Cruiser. She's unconcerned that the little one is biting her butt. We sat and watched and waited until they voluntarily departed, started getting up on this log. Now that everyone is on the branch over the stream beside the road, they're watching us. So it's like we're the performers and they're the audience. Why does the wildebeest cross the road? I don't know. Zebras and other wildebeest on the plain here, often these are seen together. Three grazing and a young one. Is he the lookout? A martial eagle in a tree. We lifted off as we left. Two male lions here on a kopie. A kopie is a granite outcropping, and they kind of stick up above the plain. These two get down and look out across the plain, give a good view of the plains. We're back on the road. Our van up here, and this one here, we'll have to get off the road and we'll pass each other. They stopped and exchanged some information a bit, greetings and information. A cheetah. A cheetah. This is a young one, with a young one. Cheetahs have what's known as tear, dark tear stain along their cheek. So they have spots in this chain. They're not as big as a leopard, but that's how you could recognize the difference between them. Daytime. Cheetahs are daytime hunters. Baboons here on the move. One exploring, one watching. The Cape buffalo. These are not pretty animals. They would stand for the ox picker birds, but they love to fight. They fight a lot, and they're quite aggressive when they get involved. Another lion stop. This oncoming cruiser is probably a private day trip. I say that because there's only one person sticking up. There's a driver. He does not have an especially big camera. So I suspect it's a day trip, private one. Male and a female lion. He's interested in mating. By the way, notice that she has a collar, radio collar on her. He's interested in mating, but she's not. Then he approached, stopped the van, and the driver said emphatically to my wife, "Quick, roll the window up, roll up the window." Meg got the window just rolled up as the lion got up on its hind legs and put its paws on the window. And he looked her right into the face with his big yellow eyes. I wish I had a photograph of that. Satisfied, he got looking. He turned, went back to the roadside and just watched us as we drove away. Not as dry here. These trees do not exist if there's not water. So at this particular copy, there is water. And this is one of the few places where actually we're allowed out of the van. There was a display here, talked about the kinds of animals and birds that were habitat at these copies. This particular one was a pre-Maasai shelter. Park was established in 1940, and since then Maasai are not allowed to graze or hunt inside the park. This particular copy had some paintings and swallow nests. These are the kinds of paintings that were left by the Maasai, probably pre-1940. Savannah bull. Oh, and more cheetahs. Cheetahs are daytime hunters, and they're checking us out here, just looking at us. Topi again. These are too big for cheetahs to take, so they prefer to hunt gazelles. More massage roads. They have terrible roads along here. Wildebeest, watering. We're here before the Great Migration, so it was really pretty quiet when we were here. But around the corner, we heard loud splashing and a lot of noises, and there were a couple hippos. I don't know if they're play fighting or real fighting. We didn't stay too long. Down the road, again, size of Connecticut. A lot of targeted driving here. I suspect road radio traffic probably allowed the driver to know where to go, like to this traffic jam. Good tours allow people to see from above. Other tours, you can't do that, and you have to look out the windows. So if you're booking a tour into safaris or anywhere, Tanzania or any place, check and see what kind of vehicles you'll be working with. Make sure that you have the ability to get up unobstructed views. But a traffic jam means only one thing. It means a fresh kill. This is a leopard up a tree. I know it's a leopard because you don't see any teardrop stain here. It's a bigger animal, and the leopards like being in trees, and cheetahs don't. It's moving a McDonald's Happy Meal from that branch over to another branch, bigger branch. Maybe it's for more privacy, I don't know. Anyway, we're heading back to the camp after a long day. And well, we've seen pretty much everything that there is to see in 4 days. So again, if you can be there longer, it's good. Last night at campfire. Our last Serengeti sunrise and then breakfast. We load our kit and we're on our way past the Maasai village near Serengeti. The Maasai village here has a stockade fence, so them, like resorts, protect themselves for the animals outside. This, I believe, is a tour van that's visiting that village. Maasai are herding people, and wealth is measured in animals and children. This group is animals are cows, cattle, as well as goats. This is solo Emirata herding goats. No time for learning and discovery today. We have a long drive to the airport. So on the way to the airport, we go by Kilimanjaro just after sunset. So there's still a faint bit of light in the clouds and the mountain is gone blue. If you're going to hike to Kilimanjaro, it's like a day hike across the plains, then another day hike up. And then in the early morning, you finish it to see the sunrise on top. We obviously did not go. It might be something to do in the future. We're heading back to Boston by way of Amsterdam. Well, thanks for tuning in for our safari to Tanzania. Robert, if anybody has any questions, by the way, they can reach me by email at jackholmes@yahoo.com. Some of my recent photography is on Facebook as images from near and far. Thank you. Robert, welcome.
All right, folks, let's give Jack a big virtual round of applause for another great program. And Jack, let's take approximately 10 minutes of questions or so.
Sure.
So an anonymous attendee asks, did the nights get cold on the safari?
Not really. I don't remember it being especially cold. No, I don't think so.
An
Not
anonymous attendee asks, Jack, did you see any snakes?
No. No snakes. I don't know if they're there. We just didn't see them.
JD has a very important question. Would like to know, what were the bathroom facilities like?
Primitive. I don't recall having to work with squat toilets. So if that's what he's asking about, they were pretty much all Western style toilets. Certainly in the tent, it would have been primitive. It would have been the equivalent of a compost toilet, perhaps. Yeah.
Let's see here. So Davida asks, what kind of meats were served?
Good question. I don't remember the meals very often. I don't recall the meat being especially high quality.
Mhm.
But I don't remember too much about the meals, unfortunately. I was not focusing meals then.
Nancy asks, what time of the year did you go? What month did you go on your safari?
We were there in November,
Mhm.
early November, which would be their beginning of their spring.
Mhm.
So it was warm. It was it was nice. It was nice weather.
Tina asks, why didn't you have any solar chargers for your electronics?
This is 2012. And
Ah,
solar charging technology was not especially common for people who were traveling. Um, at one of the lodges we stayed near Tarangire, they had solar hot water
mhm.
uh, ability. I don't recall seeing any solar or electric panels there. It was always generators.
Sherry wants to know if you made any friends on your trip.
I did. There was a couple who appeared in some of the photographs as background people, and I'm still friends with them on Facebook. A friend of my wife's accompanied us on this trip because it was on her bucket list, and we said, "Of course, we'll go with you." You know, so yeah, we had some people that we knew, but generally speaking, just that couple from I think South Carolina but they do a lot of travel with Oat. Yeah.
Debbie asks, what type of vehicle is best to travel about?
It's going to have to be able to be four-wheel drive. It's going to have high clearance. Going to have to be able to have some kind of cushioning because the roads in those parks are all at best packed gravel. At worst, there you saw some of the washboard stuff, so that it needs to be a very sturdy vehicle. You would not rent a car in Zanzibar and go into Tarangire or go into Serengeti. No, no. You'd go on a tour with somebody who had a good vehicle.
Barbara asks, how long was the flight from Boston to Tanzania?
Boston to Amsterdam's about 7 hours.
Mhm,
We flew with KLM Delta,
mhm.
and then it was KLM from Amsterdam to Arusha, and that was about 10 hours.
Oof, okay. Beverly asks, did you have any guards watching your tent at night? Uh, Maybe concerned about animals getting too close.
No, it seems like if people were inside of a vehicle or inside of a tent or inside of something, animals didn't pay much attention to you. If you were out on the ground on foot, I think then you're considered a threat or prey if it happens to be a hunter.
So no close calls for you, Jack. I know you had mentioned that the guy
Not
told your
not
wife,
for me.
not for you.
Then
Okay.
my wife had another interesting one. She was sitting in the back seat and a passing vehicle. See, they drive on the British side of the road. A passing vehicle threw up a rock and it hit the back window, and the back window kind of shattered. And so she had a bit of glass on her lap, but
Mhm.
it was safety glass. So while it was a very surprise, along with the lion, those are the
Mhm.
only incidents we had.
We'll take about 5 more minutes of questions. An
Okay.
anonymous attendee asks, do you need to have any shots prior to visiting the country?
I don't recall any. Just to be safe, you would ask your doctor to tell them that you were going and ask them if they recommend any shots for being there. But I don't remember any particular ones.
An anonymous attendee asks, what was the name of your tour company again?
Oversea Adventure Travel, they're part of Grand Circle, and they run small group adventure tours,
Mhm.
less than 18 people plus, and then add a guide or two.
So Fran says that they were in Tanzania, did a similar trip a year before you did. Migration was earlier, maybe around August. They witnessed a giraffe birth,
Ooh,
a kill, and lions mating. They
wow,
said that it was an extraordinary experience and worth every penny.
wow, I guess.
April wants to
Congratulations.
know, Jack, would you ever want to go back to Tanzania?
I'm a traveler who likes to go to places I've not been before. So right now, Tanzania is not on my return list.
Mhm.
No, but it's if you're interested in doing a safari, that's a decent place to go. I know people go to other places, Botswana. We went to one in South Africa. So there are other places to go. So it's worth researching if it's on your list. It's going to be pricey, by the way.
Connie wants to know what type of cameras did you use?
At that time, I was working with a Canon DSLR with a telephoto lens, I think up to 270. So that would be worth, say a 400 millimeter lens. Other people in the van did not have telephoto lenses. And quite frankly, I'm not sure it was that critical, but you should have some telephoto and you should have a good camera, not a telephone.
JD, this is sort of a funny one, Jack. We're starting to wind down here.
Yep.
JD wants to know if you're related to the actor James Cromwell because you look a lot like him. You ever get that, Jack?
No, not related.
I can see it though.
Yeah.
Joe wants to know, do you have any upcoming events, either in person or virtual?
I do. In person, I'm going to be in Raleigh. The last Thursday of May, Raleigh Senior Center,
Mhm.
Raleigh, Massachusetts. I'm going to be doing an in-person one in Andover in early July. It's going to be on Malta.
Mhm.
So those are the two I've got on the schedule right now.
And we're still working out the details, but we're gonna have Jack back sometime in August. So let me just quickly run through some things here. Judy says, wonderful pictures. Thank you for sharing them with us. Diane says, thank you. Connie says, wonderful photos. She calls herself Carpool Connie, by the way. You might know her, Jack.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I know, Connie. Well,
okay.
how you doing?
Jane says, thanks so much. Now I want to go to Tanzania.
Yeah.
Beatrice says this was absolutely spectacular. Always amazing. Thank you, Jack. June says, wonderful presentation. Brought back so many memories of my trip. Thank you. Frank says, bravo again, Jack. Another spectacular presentation. Marcia says, your slides are positively beautiful. You must have had a wonderful trip. Peg says, great presentation and photos. And she thanks you, as does Linda. And Judy notes that, so Judy also visited Tanzania, stayed at luxury resorts and in a luxury tent, saw many animals, hundreds of birds, and even did a hot air balloon ride
Yeah.
over the Serengeti at sunrise.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm afraid of heights, so I passed that.
just imagine all the photos you could take from that.
Yeah. No, I'd have been
So
too scared.
So, Jack, we got to just about everyone. A few questions popped in here at the end, but I think we're going to have to leave it there.
Okay.
Jack, you don't have a website, do you?
No,
So,
if anybody wants to question me, jackholmes@yahoo.com. Or if I'm
yeah.
not traveling, I'll be in my studio at Western Avenue Studio every first Saturday afternoon.
And Jack, you don't have to give this information away if you don't want to, but Sherry wants to know, what is the next trip you have planned?
Tomorrow night, we leave Croatia, um, old Yugoslavia, including Slovenia. So we'll be on the road for about 3 weeks.
All right. Well, enjoy all your travels this month and this summer, and we will see you back on Zoom in August. Folks, let's give Jack a big virtual round of applause for a great job as always. Look for an email from me tomorrow with a link to the recording, a link to a feedback survey, and information about some other upcoming virtual programs. So thank you all very, very, very much. Go Celtics, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their night. Thanks again, Jack.
Thank you all.